Good evening, guys, and happy Tuesday to all of your sunshiny faces. Well, guys, I got kind of a lot of stuff done. We actually didn't end up going walking today because I think he stayed up playing like video games late with his friends last night, because I woke up originally and I didn't hear him, and I didn't hear, like, he didn't take the dogs out or anything like that. Normally that's how I know that, like, he's up, and then he'll come and wake me up and be like, okay, are we gonna go walking? And that didn't end up happening. My mom came in and she was like, are you guys planning on going walking? And I was like, I think so. So I ended up getting up a little bit later today, but I ended up getting up, and then my mom went and told Jack that the dogs need to go out. So then he got up, took the dogs out. I like got up, I started doing some laundry, like I ended up taking care of a handful of things, and then I was like, okay, well, like, you know, Jack's gonna go and eat, and then we're gonna, you know, go and walk, because normally he eats before we go walk. I go back in his room, he's fallen back asleep. So I was just like, by the time he eats and like everything, it's gonna be like 11 o'clock, and then by that time, by the time we get back from walking, it's gonna be like noon. I was like, it just feels like it's gonna be too late. I was like, let's just not today. But we didn't end up doing that, but I did still get a workout in today because I did clean the bathroom. So I got an upper body workout in because I like scrubbed the showers, the toilets, you know, all that stuff, the sink, cleaned the windows, the mirrors, dusted, all that stuff in the bathroom. My upper body got a workout in today, but I didn't, like I said, we didn't end up going walking, but I still, you know, I still feel like I put in the work today. I ended up getting a bunch of stuff done for today, also too. But I realized that, I think I told you guys, I don't remember what day it was, one day earlier over the weekend, or the end of last week or something like that. I was telling you guys how it was interesting. I was going through some of the pictures and I had like sort of a little story to tell you guys. And I said I was going to tell you guys on Monday, and then I kind of forgot. But I will tell you guys it today. It's just kind of something interesting. And anybody else that ends up doing like kind of genealogy or like family history sort of research and stuff like that, or even too, if you have photos that you find with like people's names on the back and you kind of want to do a little bit more research, this is my story of that and my aunt's pictures that I've been going through, and this very interesting kind of peculiar sort of story that, again too, I found out, or don't really know if I found out yet. So I was going through my aunt's photos, and you know, again too, I've done a lot of family research. I have a ton of like family tree history kind of stuff on, you know, an ancestry tree. Like, you know, I've used a couple different things over the years. Like, I've just made and used like a regular like Word document kind of thing, and like a PowerPoint to kind of keep all that information and like different stuff like that. I also have like an active like ancestry family tree thing. So I have a ton of information on there, and a lot of the family information that I have is all kept from our family Bible. Now that's more specifically on my mom's side of the family, her mom. That was like the family Bible. But on my mom's like dad's side of the family, so that's my that's my great grandpa. I knew him and my great grandma also. They were alive like for a while, like I think until I was about 5-6 years old. Matthew was about a year old. On my great grandpa's side of the family, he had a brother, and I think his wife ended up doing, I think, a lot of the like research on that side of the family, or if it wasn't her, it might have been like his, I don't remember, maybe a cousin or something like that. I do have some printed out stuff from somebody on their side of the family that has got a lot of information, but I know that that was more his dad's side of the family. So like I said, I want to say that it came from maybe like a cousin or something like that, and it might have been given to his like sister-in-law, who then gave it to him, who then it passed down to like my grandma had, like, I think the papers that I have now. And I have a lot of that, like, you know, like an envelope full of all kinds of different family history type stuff too. My dad's cousin also did that, like for like my dad's side of the family. So that's how, again, too, I have a lot of information of just stuff that's been passed down. But what I consider more the holy grail kind of is the Bible, the family Bible that we have, because a lot of that was all information that was like taken down normally around the time that it happened, and was also too by like my great grandfather and stuff like that. Actually, I think it's twice great, so great grandfather, like that side of the family on my great grandma's side, that like has a lot of that information, and it's very accurate to what I've actually found, again, to doing other research. So that's what I always try and do whenever I'm doing like any ancestry type stuff. I try to say that something is as accurate as possible if I have multiple sources to back it up. And obviously, again, too, like if I come across like a grave and, you know, it has like a birth date on there, and so if the date of birth is accurate but like the date of death is not, then I tend to like start to question some things. So that will be like one example. Or if there's a marriage, you know, that like has, again, a different date or something like that than what I have, I'll try and also see if I can back it up with other sources, because maybe the information that I actually had wasn't right, and maybe the information that was taken was right. Also, sometimes too, when information gets, you know, added to like a marriage license or something like that, that's like, you know, again, it might potentially be different than like, again, something else. Like maybe it was when they threw the wedding versus when the marriage license was accurate or something like that. So like I said, sometimes, especially with obituaries, which I find very useful in helping to facilitate finding information, they're not necessarily accurate. Like even my great grandma's like her obituary, I think it was written by my aunt, but her actual given birth name is not the same as what she went by. Apparently she hated the name, but in some cases there's a handful of documents where it is her legal name. So but again too, there's a lot of documents where that wasn't like her legal name, like, you know, again too, where she used the name that she went by, which I don't know if that was her middle name or just the name that she went by, but her actual given name she apparently hated. And so again too, when I'm looking things up, I don't know if she ended up, well, like her marriage license, I believe, because at that point she kind of picked that she didn't want to use the actual her birth name, and it was interesting. This family story was that it was actually the midwife that delivered her that they ended up naming her after. And apparently she hated it. So she went by her middle name, I think, or just like a sort of a variant potentially of what her original like actual birth name was. But again too, like her marriage certificate, license, or whatever, actually I think has her like middle name or her went by name. So again too, like for example, that like an obituary or something like that might not have the proper or accurate information on it, as far as some other documents might have. So like I said, I believe that that is her actual given name, because I have found some older documents where she wouldn't have been able to choose those names, like choose using her middle name, like her parents were, and so then she ended up, you know, like not having control over what she wanted to put down on like a, you know, again, a marriage license or something like that. Or, you know, again to like a census record or something, and compared to when like she was a little kid, her parents did, and sometimes they ended up using her actual legal name, which again too, I don't even know if that would be considered like her legal name or not. I don't know what's actually on her birth certificate, funny enough, but I do believe that now she was born like in America, but my great grandpa, her father, was born in Canada. So his citizen like papers were actually he got after I think most of his kids were born, but again too, they were all born here. But like I think her name was actually what the legal name was and not what she went by. So like I said, that's the kind of stuff that's sort of interesting. That's one of the things, like I said, that, you know, I can use multiple sources to try and figure things out, but it makes it difficult when you are trying to find information, especially if somebody goes by different names and like that kind of stuff also. So it's, like I said, you know, a little bit more difficult when you're trying to find things. Obviously too, if it was like Elizabeth and somebody went by Betty, some of the search engines are smart enough to figure out that like if she went by Betty, then, or if there's papers that say Betty on them, then they'll also say like, oh, this could be her because she went by Betty, even if her name was like Elizabeth. So but my great grandma had, the only letter that was the same was her first letter of her name versus her actual legal name, I think. But they don't sound very much alike. Like, it's not like really a derivative of the name, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, so like I said, I use a lot of different sources to kind of back up this material. When I'm trying to say like that is accurate, I do believe that this is fully, you know, this document is definitely this person. If, you know, there's other, like I can see like, oh yeah, her sibling was also on this paper listed on this, or you know, again too, like if it was if there was like a draft card, you know, was the parent listed, you know, sometimes they'll have like family members that are also listed on that. Was the mom's name on there, or was the wife's name on there, and is it the same? So I can use a lot of that information to make sure that I'm backing up my facts. When I was doing this with my great-grandpa's side of the family, like I said, I was going through pictures, and his mom was married to his father, but then they ended up getting a divorce, which at that time was not very common. This was probably in the like 20s or so, maybe even before. No, yeah, probably around the 20s, because I think my great-grandpa was born in like 1914 or something like that. So somewhere probably around the 20s they ended up getting a divorce, which again too is not very common. But then years later, years and years later, I think she got remarried, and so she had 3 surnames. However, I could never find the man that she ended up remarrying. But interesting enough, while I was going through these pictures that my aunt have, I finally found a picture of this guy, because my mom was like, well, maybe she didn't remarry, maybe she just like changed her last name because she didn't want to stay with the surname that she had, and maybe she wanted people to think that she was married, to not be like, oh, I'm divorced, you know, and she didn't want to go back to her maiden name either, so possibly that was why she ended up changing it. Well, I found 2 pictures that my aunt had of this person that was in this photo, and it was the same surname that she then ends up having, and it's also like what she's listed as on like her gravestone, I believe, is like with her this, you know, again, 3rd surname now. So it was kind of interesting to find that and actually find a picture of this guy. However, the more interesting thing is, now I'm going to refer to him with a very common last surname and just call him Mr. Jones. That was how he was listed on these photos. He was both called Mr. Jones in one of the photos and Grandpa Jones in the other photo. And so I don't have a first name for him, which is insanely also difficult because I don't have any other information as well. I can't really find like a marriage certificate or, you know, marriage license or anything like that. Now, there is sometimes where like if you are doing some research on Ancestry, it will like give you a hint and it might show you like the first name and like maybe the last name, but then it won't give you the dates and stuff like that, and it won't give you access to it unless you pay, and I'm not about to pay the $350 or $250 it is for like 6 months, I think. I'm debating whether or not I might do it like once a month every like year or something like that and pay for like full access, because it's not like super expensive. I think if you do like just like I think you have to do like a once a month thing. I think they have different packages and stuff like that where you can do like 1 month and you don't have to be tied into like doing it for the whole year or whatever, but I don't know. I've been debating whether or not sometimes I want to do it, because I was like, it would make it easier to find some of this information that I have, but you know, that I think is available to me, but I just don't have access to. So like I said, without paying for anything, so far all of the research that I've done has been completely free, and like I said, it's been really helpful with the fact that I have a lot of information that has been passed down, and I can verify a lot of that with records that I do have access to or that are free, you know, on different sites as well. So again, back to Mr. Jones. He, like I said, I have these 2 pictures of him, but I don't have his first name, and I actually have confirmation that he existed. And apparently they went to Florida. Well, interesting enough, when I was on the Ancestry thing kind of comparing this, I found out that there was a marriage license, it looks like, for 2 of them with a first name and a last name that matched my great grandma, and also this Mr. Jones fellow had the same last name, and so I think I might have found found his first name. Well, my aunt was over the other day. I ended up asking her if she knew what his name was. She told me she thought it was like Steve or something like that. Well, that wasn't what it said on there, and she was like, really, I'm not sure, but I think it might be this. And then when I brought it up to her that this was the name that I found, she was like, I don't know if that's it. Like, she kind of seemed like it wasn't the right fit. So again, too, I'm not going to, you know, again, put that down as like, oh, that's fact, especially if she can't back it up, but she also said that she didn't know. So as I'm going through more photos, all of a sudden I find this other Jones fellow in a picture with my great-grandpa, her son, and he has a different first name, and we'll just call him Robert. So Robert Jones is in this picture with my grandpa and his brother and one of their friends, a very close friend that like even my mom knew him and his last name. Were in this photo together, and they were out doing something, and then there's like other photos from that time, because I told you guys how I'm trying to piece the photos back together. My great grandpa and my great grandma, like they were hanging out and stuff like that. It seemed like it was like kind of like a family, maybe like a family party thing, or they just like some of the younger kids, you know, and friends and stuff like that got together. Well, like I was saying, it's interesting about this Robert Jones fellow because he has the same last name as the Mr. Jones or Grandpa Jones. Well, then, as I'm still going through more photos, those photos that my aunt gave me that were extra photos when we went to go and pick up the furniture, like last weekend or whatever, she was like, oh, well, I was cleaning out, you know, some stuff I found in more pictures. So I was going through those pictures and starting to, you know, piece some of them together. I find another photo with my aunt, my other aunt, and somebody else, and then this little girl whose last name is also Jones. And then I find another picture with all of the like moms plus their daughters. So it was like, again, to my aunt, this other little girl, and then this little Jones girl, along with her mom, who also has the last name Jones. So I'm doing some research, I'm looking some stuff up. Well, I find that Robert Jones, I find his grave, and I find that he's married to the lady that's in the photo with the little girl, and that's also his daughter that's listed in there, and I can find her grave as well. And so I find all this stuff, and the time, you know, kind of matches up, because I was like, he probably was born around the same time that my great grandpa was, and then this little girl was the same age that, you know, again, to pretty much my aunt was. And so we figure out that these three people in these photos are all connected. Now, the one thing though that I wanted to find out, because I found his obituary, but I wanted to see if it had listed his father's name and if maybe he was Grandpa Jones. And I could confirm then that the name that I found on Ancestry matched up with the one that was his father's name, and that would kind of convince me that like that was actually his son, that maybe that was how they met. Like my great grandpa and uncle knew this, you know, guy, this Robert Jones, and maybe they ended up introducing him to, or his father to, my great grandma, which would be a really interesting story. So it could have been that. It could have also been the fact that they just, my great grandma and Grandpa Jones ended up meeting, and then they ended up getting together, and you know, again, and this was much later, like probably around the time maybe my aunt was born anyway. I don't know how, like I said, I have no information for sure as to like when they got married or anything like that, but the photo of them that I have was probably, I think, from around that time anyway, like maybe around the 40s or so when my aunt was born. So the other theory or idea could be that potentially my you know, they were, you know, again, together or whatever, and then they just happened to go out to hang out at this park place. Like I said, that those other photos that had them in, it had Robert Jones in there, and that again too, maybe they were just together and hanging out because, you know, they were family technically, because both their parents were married. And so she did confirm this by saying something about, oh, he the one thing she remembered was that he favored his kids a lot or something like that, meaning that like maybe there was a little bit of a rift in like that he kind of, again, too, either had special treatment for like his kids, which would have been Robert Jones potentially, and maybe didn't so much with, you know, like, again, too, maybe they spoiled his granddaughter more, and then they did like my aunt, or, you know, something like that was kind of the thing my aunt was alluding to. But the fact that he had kids also convinced me that potentially this was it. Now, I have no other photos with these Jones people that I can find that is at least confirmed written on the back of any of the photos or anything like that, but I found that that was a really cool story, and something that's one of those things that, like, when you can start to piece those things together, which is still a mystery because I still cannot technically confirm that it is them, but it really makes me think that it is, and that that is actually his son, and that those pictures with, again, to the, you know, again, his wife and then his daughter with, you know, my aunt and then my great grandma, and, you know, like that kind of stuff, and the picture of Robert Jones with my great grandpa kind of together makes it seem like it probably is what, you know, having the same last name just seems very convenient. But again, too, I never like to put anything down unless I'm certain about it. I will sometimes leave myself like little notes like, this is a potential possibly related person, but I can't find anything else out, you know, need more information or whatever. And so, like I said, I thought that that was just interesting because that's the kind of stuff I love about ancestry and like finding about history stuff. I think it's a lot cooler when it's like your personal history and family and stuff like that, but that's why I'm just a huge nerd when it comes to like all kinds of history in general. But it's more like that, like, you know, again, too, as of right now, not a lot of people are left alive that can confirm the identity of who Mr. Jones is and who his son was, and I don't have a lot of information that I can find to back that up right now. I don't have anybody listed in his obituary. His parents aren't listed in his obituary. And then too, again, like, I can't find out much information about Grandpa Jones either to be like, oh, he did have kids and that was them. Like, I haven't found anything about where he's buried, his obituary, his date of birth, you know, when he ended up passing away. Like, I can't find any of that information, and so it's just one of those things that's like, this is a mystery, and I like to figure out those mysteries. It makes it fun to kind of deep dive into finding that information. But again, too, had I not went through any of these pictures, I wouldn't have known any of that information, and had I found maybe Grandpa Jones's information, I might have not realized that we had pictures with his son possibly. And again, too, like, who the rest of his family is, and it's kind of like almost like that long lost family kind of thing, because maybe his daughter has kids also that then, you know, we would kind of, I mean, not technically be related to, but like kind of through marriage and stuff like that. But to have that information, I think, is just really cool. What if you come across them at some point and you can be like, oh my gosh, you know, did you know we're actually related? Like I said, I think that stuff is really, really cool, and I love doing ancestry type things and finding out that information and piecing those puzzle pieces together to really find out more about the story. But like I said, that's one of the big kind of mysteries that I have on my family tree, is not knowing who this Grandpa Jones was anyway, and actually being able to confirm he was a real person, and then being able to confirm that there's potentially photos that we have with like his kids, you know, and like that kind of stuff, and with his, you know, of his grandkids is really cool. And knowing that like maybe my great grandpa and his son were actually pretty close, and again, too, depending on, like I said, what scenario possibly happened where they were actually close to begin with, and then his grandpa, who was also possibly, you know, again, not married, ended up then marrying my great grandma. You know, I think it's really cool, but I still need that like little piece of information that if I could just confirm one thing, I could be like, yes, it definitely is. But I don't have anything like concrete enough for me to be able to say that is for sure who they are. But I thought I'd share that with you guys because, like I said, I find it kind of interesting, and kind of doing all of these little, you know, like I said, these puzzle pieces that get to connect bigger pictures of things and bigger family stuff and things like that. But I've never had any anything like this where I've had like multiple pieces of information, but not all of it to be able to come together, and also think about what the scenarios were as to how it got there, you know, again, to who introduced who and how did they, you know, mix the families and stuff like that. I think is a really cool thing. So, you know, again, I mean, there's lots of other stuff too that I found really interesting through a lot of these photos. Like my great grandma actually had a milk truck, and she actually like owned her own, I don't know if she owned the milk truck, but she had like her own milk route, and it was the same as my great grandpa. Her dad also had one, and then she ended up working for a rival milk company. And so I thought like that kind of information is also really cool. And you know, like those type of things that like you get to piece those little things and make their life seem very like, you know, relatable. Like sometimes it's just like they're just a picture or they're just a name, you know, on a family tree, but when you get a lot more of that information and you can like kind of piece the story together of their life, is the stuff that's really, really cool. And that's what I love doing with like ancestry and you know, research and that kind of stuff, is being able to actually look through the lens of like the things that they got to experience and how, again, to like family relationships worked and like all this kind of stuff too. I think is very interesting. So anyways, I'm gonna take a shower and get to bed, but I thought I'd share with you guys that possibly fun little tidbit of information that I'm still gonna keep searching and keep looking for. I didn't even really do that much. Like I didn't exhaust all of my resources that I know of. It was just like what I could kind of do on my phone quickly and tried to piece some of the stuff together, but I think I still did a pretty decent job, like with Robert Jones and connecting him and knowing that his wife was who his wife was and his daughter, and finding out all of that information. And you know, again too, by piecing together, making sure all they had the same first names as the ones that showed up in the photos and all the same last names. It's one of those like kind of, you're just right there and connecting it kind of thing. So you know, like I said, that was my quick research, but I could definitely do some deeper research and try and find out some more stuff, which I'm hopefully going to, but I have to still get those pictures organized and finish working through them. But as you guys can tell, sometimes I get totally sidetracked. I find a really good picture, now I have to look up all this information about it. So anyways, I'll see you guys all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye guys.